I'm going to call the meeting to order here at 7:02. And first item of business on our agenda here tonight is approval of the minutes of the September 16th, 2021 Athletic Fields Task Force. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, Jim, thank you. And I got a second from Chad there, I think.
You got it. Yep.
Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes for the September 16th meeting, please say aye,
Yes.
raise your hand, or
Aye.
Aye.
okay, any opposed? Or any abstaining? No, great. All right, we have no members of the public here tonight. So moving on to our first order of business, which is a regular meeting schedule for 2022. We've been meeting on, what is this, the third? We have Bruce Jones here. I see somebody just popped in there, a guest to our meeting. But we've been doing this, does this night work, the third Wednesday or third Thursday at 7? Is that, are we okay moving forward in 2022 with the same dates?
I would say so. For me,
Works for me too.
yes.
All right.
It's fine. Typically works.
Okay, so I guess please help me out here with a formal motion for that then. Is there anybody who would like to make that motion to make the regular meeting times the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m.?
I'll make the motion to keep it the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. for 2022.
All right, a second on that,
Second.
and that was Jim?
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay,
Aye.
anybody opposed? And anybody abstaining? Fantastic. I'm gonna have to tell Frank how well this meeting is going. All right, so we do have several items of old business, and actually 3 of them. One is to discuss the concerns raised about artificial surfaces, kind of rehashing that a little bit if that was on, if there's other things to present with that. The discussion of the Athletic Fields Task Force involvement with the CIP project, selecting the firm that's going to help us do those field studies. And then there's also an item to discuss alternative conceptual designs for the Clodchester property. I will note that there are a couple of other or at least one other piece of business that's kind of come up since the agenda was prepared, not really under old business, but the Board of Education acted or is considering acting to use ARPA funding to redo the field house at the Pitch High School. So, we can talk about those, and I'm open to suggestions about what order we want to discuss those with. And I take Jim's point that he's got a hard stop at 8 o'clock, so I want to make sure we take care of the first or the most important items first. So I'll if anybody has thoughts on which ones they'd like to tackle first, I'm all ears, and I think we can adjust the agenda accordingly.
I would say, as far as the way I see it personally, the artificial turf, I think we just continue to table that. We don't have anything new to report. We haven't started anything. So until the study happens, I think I'm fine letting that be tabled. And then as far as the CIP stuff goes, I don't know if it's pressing yet, just because we haven't gotten there yet. And so then it really comes down to the Clodchester conceptual designs. which now sounds, based on the information I heard late this afternoon, that's pushed off a couple of weeks. So then maybe I would say that newest business of whatever the Board of Ed's thinking of doing, let's start there.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any objections to moving the ARPA funding for the field house at the high school discussion up in the agenda? All
Makes
right.
sense. Let's do it.
And okay, so I know that Jay is on the call. Jay did bring this up at the Board of Ed meeting, and Jay is also, I think, attending 2 meetings at one time here. So I'm not sure if he's able to speak or not, but I'll give him the opportunity to kind of restate what he said at the Board of Ed meeting earlier this week. And so Jay, if you can hear me and you're paying attention there, I'll give you the floor.
Sure, and I'll keep this brief. This really follows on a brief discussion that you had at the last meeting about potential funding for replacement or renovation of the field house. And with this ARPA funding available, the board just wanted to be on record that we would support that idea of doing something with the field house, as long as it does not in any way conflict with the master plan that you're working on. I know we didn't want to take this piece by piece. However, this is really something that we did not anticipate, this federal funding coming down. And it just seems to me that it would be unfortunate if we didn't at least renovate that so that we can have, up to code restrooms for visitors, concessions. These are things that we can directly connect also to COVID-19. Currently that facility just is not appropriate under any circumstances, but certainly not during COVID-19. So we just want to be on record about that. And then if we can replace that building, we're talking about the original field house, the 1950 vintage field house. If we could also incorporate into that changing rooms for female athletes, the board is very concerned about equity. And so we feel that's something, we would love to go in and say, hey, let's do the football field, let's do the track. The problem is, as you well know, if we re-crown the field now, which we've been asking for many years, it conflicts with your plan for artificial turf and possibly for flipping the field. So we just figured take this one discrete project, go to the town council and see if they will agree with us. In the meantime, we are going to retain SLAM to do the engineering, and we're going to pay for that so that we know exactly what the plan is. And again, make sure it doesn't conflict with your future plans. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. And Mark, I know you were at the meeting as well. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just think that, Jay's point about equity, is something that I think the high school specifically has been kind of dealing with for the last so many years. And, I think if we can make this work, and I think it's a win-win for not only our fields task force, but for the school and the students as well. So.
And keep in mind that, I'm usually silent in these meetings because I don't speak for the board, but in this particular case, we did have a vote to say that we're behind this plan. And sure, there are lots of other things that need to be done. The bleachers, totally out of compliance. But again, that's a long-term plan. We don't want to replace the bleachers today and then have your plan to flip the field. So the other good news, and I know this isn't exactly on the agenda, the good news is that the town did approve the use of money from the leftover middle school and elementary school project to put the lights in at GMS on the field. But I pushed it a little bit further because some of the town councilors also wanted to do more bleachers, maybe facilities there. And so I think we're waiting for a final accounting for, I'm not saying we have to spend every penny, don't get me wrong, we don't have to go crazy. But if there's a significant amount and we can do a few extra things besides lights, why let that money lapse and then go back out to the town and ask for money all over again? as long as but of course that can't be used at the high school. It would just have to be middle school or elementary school. So I think I've said enough.
Jay, that I would definitely support that, and think that we could probably work with Slam or whoever to be able to make sure that that renovated field house or replaced field house can work with whatever plans might be coming down the way. Is the ARP money that the board is looking to use, is that part of the town 8 point whatever million, or part of what the schools are getting in that ARP funding?
Yeah, we were intending to to apply to the town's funding. Ours is being used for student support in the wake of COVID-19, tutoring and other support, directly for them. So, and unfortunately, that was already decided, some time ago. So we would go to the town and see. So, I mean, it's worth a shot. It's up to the town council, and I don't know if it'll be this council or the next council.
Yep. So then you're working with Slam, I assume, to probably put together both a plan as well as a budget as soon as possible to be able to have a number to give to the council.
Yes, that's my understanding. Sam Kilpatrick was going to be calling them to set that up right away. There was a rough proposal, I think, a year ago. So we're going to revisit that, make sure they have time to do it, and proceed.
Okay.
So Jay, one thing I would just add, and I guess we kind of danced around it a bit. There are, and just so everybody's aware of exactly what we're talking about, the original field house is the building that gets painted every year with whatever kind of graffiti strikes the whim of whatever senior class or whatever. That's the original field house. And the brick building that's white, that is the, I guess, the new field house, as we might call it, is really I guess I don't want to speak for Mark, but I went through that building pretty intensively with Vin several months ago, and it really, in my estimation, that building doesn't really have a lot of use either, just based on how it's configured with gang showers and space that's a ton of locker space that really isn't used, a really small equipment area, accessibility to the second floor, that kind of stuff. It's just not a good building, and it's not a building that we would design today. And so from my standpoint, if we're talking about the field house at the high school, I'm thinking get rid of those two and get something that replaces both of those. That includes those changing or team facilities for both boys and girls sports, concession stands, restrooms, public restrooms, storage for sports equipment, coaches' rooms, that kind of thing. That's enough space for all of those things in a single facility, I think is, just from my pie in the sky view of things, I guess that's what I would be shooting for. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, or what, kind of what the scope of what we're looking at here is.
I guess, Jerry, I assumed, and I assumed incorrectly, that the field house that we were talking about was the one with the locker rooms and the showers and all that. I assumed the other building is just a bathroom. I didn't realize that was the original field house, and that's the one we're talking of.
The bathroom and the concession area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole, I don't know, whichever we want to say, the old one, the painted one, however you want to describe it.
Black one.
That's the visiting teams area that they're going to use as well. There's one bathroom in there. So for example, like with football, a team like an NFA will say comes with like 100 kids. They got one bathroom. They can't get the whole team in there. The men's room, people can't even identify it, so it's just, we need something new. And then on top of that, the newer field house, I guess we'll call it, is not ADA compliant or any of that stuff. So
Yep.
we really, we have the equity issue with male, female, we have the ADA issue. I mean, they're both outdated. And, I think Jerry kind of said it best, like we need a, new concession, locker room, visiting team, storage, we need a redo is essentially where we're at, to get up the code, I think, to get to, accessibility, all that stuff. So, yeah.
And of course, we can't do all of that at this stage. So, we're just looking to do the bare minimum. It'd be nice if this weekend, when we have the 11 marching bands from all over, that we actually had a restroom that people could use, and concessions that actually would be safe for people to. But in addition, if we're going to replace that building and we build enough space, I'm saying we can, again, this is just my opinion. I think we can get by with the so-called new field house for the home football team temporarily, but we really need to address the equity issue and then pick up the new field house maybe in the next iteration of the plan, something like that. Now, if there's bigger needs in the town, the town council will have to decide what the priority is. But we just didn't want the opportunity to go by without at least making a case, and then the town leaders can decide.
So Jay, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're from your standpoint, you think the board is really kind of limiting their scope of that to the old field house, replacing that and maybe coming up with a concession stand, some public restrooms, a ticket booth or something like along those lines, and potentially maybe some bigger space in there that could be used by a team or a visiting team or a different gendered team, and somehow make those two kind of facilities work for a short time while we wait for a larger renovation of the new field house. Is that what I'm hearing?
I just don't think that, we're not talking, I don't think it's reasonable to expect that we're going to be able with this ARPA funding to completely renovate both or replace and renovate both buildings in this. But we felt like that was the most critical need up there, where the restrooms, concession, and female athlete facilities. And then we look to your plan for, the renovation of the so-called new field house, the fields, the track, the bleachers, and everything else.
I guess one of the things I'm trying to wrap my head around or trying to conceptualize if the girls end up getting some type of a team facility in this concession restroom kind of building over here, and the guys get some kind of other facility a couple of years down the road over there, that those two things kind of end up being equal or, equitable, let's say, not equal, but equitable for their teams. I guess that's just kind of a question I would have, is that possible, or is it, does somebody end up getting the short end of the stick there? I just would hate that to be, to not solve that equity issue that we're trying to really attack.
Well, even if we, down the road are able to replace or renovate the old or the new, the 70s versus the 50s field house, to encompass both male and female facilities, then, the space that was created in this new building, maybe that could become the visiting team space or something. But
Currently,
right now,
it is a visiting team space.
In the new field house?
No, in the 50s field house where the concessions is, that's the visiting
Yeah.
team space right now.
Yeah,
So are they gonna lose that if we make that the female facility?
yeah, this is something we're gonna have to talk to Slam about. How much space do we really have there and what can we
Right,
really
can
fit
you have it
into
so
that
the
space?
visiting team still has it, plus we have a
Yeah.
extra area for the females, so this, because the females need a space, but we can't
Right.
take away the visiting team space.
Yeah, no, I know like, in other sports like basketball and things like that, normally, it's used, the opposing, team uses, the opposite space. So if it's let's just say a boys basketball game, they would use the female locker room. If it's a girls basketball game, so, we can be flexible with that, I think, depending on what the event is down there. And
That's true.
with
They're not
the-
gonna be there at the same time.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that was going to be my question, Mark. Is there any reason why it couldn't be a visiting locker room and a female locker room? It sounds like the answer to that would be no. Just a matter of that becomes a matter of scheduling at that point,
Right,
Right.
yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be both, depending on, who's using it, the size of the team, that type of stuff. And the field house, that's the other field house, or whatever you want to say, the male field house, or,
the
that
70s.
we could use that one for an opposing team as well, if it came down to it. So just so that there was, each home team had their respective space.
True, we could put the home team in the new field house for male and female and give the visiting team the old field house, the 70s.
At the
I
end of
think
the-
that's a good idea.
At the end of the day, if we think about it, we currently have no facility for females. So anything that we can do is a step in the right direction towards equity. And so I think from that perspective, I think it's something that we should seriously consider. I
Support,
think
yeah.
Chad had raised it earlier, or support is, yeah, we should
Yeah.
support it. And I think the other thing is that we should make sure what Chad had said around making sure that any renovations we do now don't interfere with the longer term plans, and make sure that we're being thoughtful and considerate about how that sets up relative to whatever configuration changes we may want to make down the road. Because I would hate to build it and then us turn around and say we need to tear something down to retrofit the field into the space. Thank you.
Yeah, and we were adamant on Monday that it would fit in with whatever your master plan is. We do not want to build something that's going to impede progress down the road.
Yeah, so I
Thank you
would say, I mean, I definitely support it personally, and I would look forward to seeing those plans to see what Slam comes up with, like what are the alternatives or what do they think is possible for what type of budget. And then I would look forward to seeing it. And if I can reach out to Sam Kilpatrick also if it's helpful, but just to or even Slam and say, this is where we're thinking master plan, big picture, here's an envelope that's probably not going to affect what our future plans are. Because it is kind of right in a critical spot when you look at it. We could have a road that goes down the hill to the next field to the north, and we need to have a really good ADA access coming around it down the hill from the south, and the field and the parking lot and everything else. So yeah, I'd be happy to reach out to Sam and or Slam, whoever's going to be working on it, and be able to give a little bit of guidance if it's helpful for them as to what our plans might be.
Yeah, that sounds good. And again, I mean, we're not tied to it has to be on that exact site. I mean, I don't really know that there's anything about the building that's salvageable myself. So if it has to be relocated, but we're open to whatever it takes to make sure it works.
I guess, and it was said at the, or at least I said it at the board meeting the other night, that the task force from prior meetings, we've expressed a lot of interest in pursuing any kind of funding that might be available for the field house. And I think we all agree with Jay that any step forward here is a step worth taking. So we're in agreement with that, Jay, and, you know, all these details that we're kind of arguing over or discussing here are, you know, that's I guess the small stuff. We got the big stuff is you know, that the board is supportive of advocating for this type of facility that's going to suit the need. That's big picture, good stuff from, I think, the task force's standpoint. So great. Is there any other discussion on the potential ARPA funding for the field house? Okay. All right, so Chad, yeah, I think everybody also agrees that you talking to Sam, or, you know, if he puts you in contact with Slam or whoever to, you know, to kind of lay out any kind of broad brush, you know, spaces that might work or something like that. I think that's only helpful for everybody. All right. I'm sorry, did I talk over somebody? Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda I have is the Claude Chester property conceptual designs. Just a bit of an update here. I sent out an email. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, asking people to, you know, see if they could come to the next Tuesday meeting of the town council, because we were invited to be there, and it turns out that the town manager late this afternoon kind of was asked by the mayor to kind of change that up. So there are two discussions that are kind of happening regarding former school properties. One is Pleasant Valley and one is Claude Chester. Obviously, we have expressed interest in the Claude Chester property to put community use fields on there. The Pleasant Valley School, just a little bit of kind of broad brush overview of that. The town did go out to solicit proposals for development of that property, and that proposal that was accepted is kind of no longer on the table, and they're looking at other potential, you know, whether to develop it or whether to develop the whole thing, a part of it, and save some space for park or athletic fields and that kind of thing. So there's the council's kind of massaging that discussion. And also at the Claude Chester property, I think I shared an email, I believe, with everybody that had an alternative view or idea for the Claude Chester property on the lines of a town green that would be maintained to do just kind of large community events at the site. So those kinds of things are on the table, and it looks like the Claude Chester discussion is going to happen after the Pleasant Valley discussion, because the Pleasant Valley discussion, there's a lot of information that I know Chad has, that he's looked into it about what other facilities are in the area, how it's serving that portion of town. You know, are there enough playgrounds up there? Are there enough recreation facilities, enough fields, that kind of stuff? And, you know, there's a lot of information there that the town council needs to consider. And once they consider that, then they can maybe move on to the Claude Chester discussion. So maybe, Chad, I'll give you an opportunity to chime in there and provide more maybe detail other than my a really high level.
No, that was good. That was good. I mean, so yes, I think that initially, I think the town manager and staff wanted to try to cover both Pleasant Valley and Claude Chester in one meeting, because they're both school properties and both considered possible rec things. But because of how busy the town council's meeting is going to be on Tuesday, they opted to push the Claude Chester to the first Tuesday of November is when we'll be talking about that. Pleasant Valley, yes, it was out. There was an accepted bid, and that bid was withdrawn after the fact. And so now that they have to restart, everybody's kind of taking a moment to pause and thinking about, is an RFP the right way, or should we consider something else? And there were some people from that area of a town that were saying, how come we don't do any recreational assets there on that piece of property. We did do a quick look at it. The property itself is not very large, and it's got a pretty steep slope on the western edge of the property. It's not large enough for recreational fields. We might be able to just squeeze in maybe one, but we wouldn't get the parking in that we needed, and it'd be an isolated field. And when we looked at it, although there's a lot of housing in that area, the most of the housing in direct proximity is actually Navy housing. And what I'd say the resident side is kind of over the hill and then down closer to 95 in the bridges. So we were looking at other recreational opportunities that are around there and how that might better fit or serve those neighborhoods, and or what should go in at Pleasant Valley. So that's that conversation. And any of you can definitely chime in if you think we should be putting a field there. It's not a property we've talked about as a task force at all. And so I think we've kind of ruled it out, but if any of you think we should look at it closer, we can, or I can show you the plans where we don't really fit much on it. And so then we go back to hopefully Claude Chester in that discussion in the first meeting in November. The 3 plans that I think Jerry shared with the group last meeting, we've refined just a little bit. We haven't refined, just meaning graphically they look a little nicer. It's the exact same content. There's one plan that's just fields and parking, another one with minor amount of economic development and fields, and then another one with what we'd consider to be the maximum amount of development and parking and fields that we could fit on that piece of property before something has to give. So those are the 3 options that will be shown to the council that first Tuesday of November.
And so, yeah, I'll take a rain check on everybody who expressed interest in going to the 26th meeting. If you can now change your schedule, and I think the date was the 9th, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, what's that Tuesday in November?
November, Tuesday.
Yeah, November 9th. And the town manager specifically asked for task force members to be there. I think the town council wants to hear what the athletic fields task force has to say about the proposal for that property, and I think we need to be prepared to kind of address the issue of a town green or a community events kind of space, and how that impacts us, or how that impacts what we think we can accomplish there, or whatnot. So I guess I don't know. If anybody has any initial thoughts on that, I think feel free to share those now, or the idea of, again, town green versus fields, or maybe it's not an or, maybe it's an and.
I thought that when we looked at the last renditions of the options, if we decided that the commercial properties would delay the process, if we removed them from the plans that had commercial property, we'd be able to realign some of the space to include a town green and still keep our fields.
Yeah, that's what we had talked about, and what Jerry and I conveyed to town staff, I think also at our last meeting, was that Jerry's definitely done a good job of advocating that was the position of the task force. None of those plans have been seen by the town council yet, so that's why all 3 plans were going to go in front of the town council. And I think that's what they're looking to this group, to show up and talk about what's your idea, and do we like or not like? Because there's definitely a question of the school that has to come down. If that costs $1.5 million to take down, that's $1.5 million that we have to add to a fields project or a town green project. If there's economic component to it, then that's conceivable that some of that could be offset by that development. So I think that's where they're looking for input. And last time, I agree, as a task force, we kind of said, we need fields. We've needed fields so badly. We don't want to get caught waiting, and be in a holding pattern for a couple of years. And so I think that's important. We probably pass that along to the town council, so they have that information in there to make their decisions.
We also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, this is Jim. Sorry, Jerry. I was just gonna say that I guess the one thing for me with the town green versus the fields is, I guess when you talk about it as an and, is there any opportunity for us to be able to use the fields for both? So they're not just strictly athletic fields, but they also have the opportunity to host community events or things of that nature. So I know that that may be difficult from a scheduling perspective, but is there any way that we can think about, multi-purpose uses for these fields? And I think furthermore to that, I think we're back to the conversation around the need for more fields that we can also alleviate with adding lights in lots of places to have more usage of the fields we currently have, especially if we go to turf surfaces. So I think we're kind of in a cyclical conversation pattern, if you will, in terms of what we need to do. So it's about the prioritization of those pieces, I think, from my perspective, that we need to sort of align on.
So Jim, that's a great question. And I think we touched on it just a little bit in the last meeting. And I think I mentioned something about, if we develop fields at Claude Chester, community use fields, likely turf, likely lit, likely with all those amenities, that takes a great deal of demand off of Pequannock Plains Park. Pequannock Plains Park right now is the varsity field for Fitch High School sports. And when you're maintaining turf, as an athletic field, there's a different level of care that's involved in that. If we need a place, and you're saying kind of combined use, well, if we're having a community event, I'd rather have a community event on grass than artificial surface, frankly. I mean, if I'm playing sports, I probably want to play on an artificial surface. If I'm looking to have a great time with my family, enjoying the company of others in a big community event, I'd say I'd rather be on grass. So from that standpoint, I think, the dual use is kind of Pequannock Plains Park. And we have a history of dual use at Pequannock Plains Park with Fall Festival, National Night Out, Food Truck Festival, what have you. I mean, those events have existed, but those events have been limited by the need to maintain that grass in a competition, surface way. And if we can, move a lot of the, more competitive, more sports that do more wear and tear on the field to athletic surfaces that can, withstand that use better, we have a field that we can probably have, great time with youth soccer, and you could put a bunch of youth soccer fields out there. I could see, youth soccer jamboree with, 10 or 12 fields out there laid out all over the place, that kind of event at Pequannock Plains that you can't do on an artificial surface, but that this would be perfect for, so, the town green concept, I think we've got a playground, we got a walking track that's used all the time, all those things. I think that opens up, it just opens up Pequannock Plains Park to help suit that need. At least from the guy who takes the phone call, scheduling the field standpoint. I don't know that I want to, kind of upset the, what's going to serve the needs of this task force better. Those fields, we have demand for those fields. We have demand for fields that we cannot meet right now. I'd say take the fields and, then we can use the younger kids or the less competitive leagues and things like that at Pequannock Plains and do all of these community events that we haven't been able to do because we've limited them because of what it's going to do to the field for Fitch High School or whatever when they're trying to compete athletically there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a reasonable thing to me.
I think it makes sense, Jerry. And I think that's kind of along the lines of what I'm thinking is like, Pequannock becomes the dual usage facility.
Well, it is now.
But maybe to your point, I think that was one of the arguments that we've heard, right? Is that it's not to the full degree because we don't allow folks on the fields. But if we open that up, then we've got the green and you can put 100 people on and have a concert, if you will. And you're not worried about folks trampling on the soccer field or the lacrosse field or whatever field you want to call it. And I think that maybe that is a reasonable approach. but it would necessitate the agreement on, in my mind, turf fields and lights at the Claude Chester property to absorb the demand that you would have otherwise if you start to use a dual usage at Pequannock, I think. So
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, we did spec synthetic surfaces at Claude Chester because the demand assessment that we did said we needed that many fields, and if we make those fields at Claude Chester grass fields, okay, yes, I'm not going to say no to that, but I'm going to say that we're still not going to meet the demand then, because grass fields, as Chad's math tells us, doesn't accommodate as much use as a synthetic surface does. And if you build 2 grass fields versus 2 synthetic fields, you're going to need to build a third natural field to accommodate the same need.
Yep. I mean, I would agree that with the idea of the multi-use fields that could serve a town green function at the same time. And I was a little shocked too to hear, from enough people in the public that they wanted a town green and that it wasn't functioning like that at Pequannock Plains, because I really think Pequannock Plains functions great. I mean, the fall festivals, all the, even like when you do the parade down the street, the amount of people that park there. But I would totally agree that yes, you guys have to limit the amount of use that happens on the actual field and the playing surface, because grass can only tolerate so much trampling, and you got to limit that, or else you're going to turn it into a mud hole. And the idea that if we can alleviate some of the trampling by moving some of those fields, they're getting overused right now. So if we can alleviate that, put it onto the new fields, then that opens up those existing grass areas, that still could be used as youth fields and still be active athletic fields, but could tolerate a lot more public community use at the same time. And then the other side of it is, the word town green, from a landscape architect who's designed a lot of town greens in a lot of communities, it means something different to every single person. And it ends up being something different in every single municipality that we work in. So that to me is a larger conversation with the individuals in public information sessions about what is a town green, what are you wanting to do? To some people it's just a big open area, to other people it's a splash pad or something else. So it's just great to hear people say they want a town green, that they want to have a town center. So that's a down the road project, but I think we definitely incorporate it into this overall picture, and it's not a one or the other, it's a both, and how do we incorporate it all?
Okay. Any other? Not on that.
That's me. Yep.
Okay, and since we have a couple minutes before Jim needs to jump ship here, I at some point here soon, perhaps I think probably after the town council makes some kind of decision on what they want to do with Claude Chester, we are ready to go with a RFP or an RFQ for the plans for to develop the plans for the fields at the 3 sites. And I guess I'm looking for people that want to be involved in that kind of process, at least interviewing the firms and kind of going through that selection process and whatnot, to kind of, to be the, part of the town's review of those who might want to take on that job. So, I'll just throw that out there. If there's anybody who feels that they want to be involved in that process, just please talk to me and let me know of your interest, and I'll gladly, put you involved in that as well. All right. So with that, I guess I don't really have any other anything on the agenda. I think we agreed to table the discussion on the the safety concerns about synthetic turf. Third Thursday of November is the 18th. So I guess that's our next meeting. Last call for any final discussion items or anything? Without that,
I move to adjourn.
there we go. That's what I was waiting for those magic words.
Second.
Quickest
Thanks,
meeting we've ever
Danny.
had.
And I don't think we discussed that. I'm just going to ask for everybody in favor. Please say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everybody. And I will send out the minutes as normal and look forward to seeing everybody again in a couple weeks and hopefully even sooner on the 9th at the town council meeting. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.